That sting is a term that Freud uses. I think he only uses it like once. Really kind of just uses it in passing to describe uh, this enigmatic dimension of the mother other. I think last month I talked about how the child at a very early stage plays with the presence and the absence of the mother other, of the primary caregiver. And you see this played out in games like trucks, where the cars are pushed away and pulled back, and where children throw keys away and then the parent gives the keys back and they throw them, or peekaboo. All of these presence and absence games. And that so there's that type of presence and absence, but Freud just briefly mentions another presence and absence that goes on in the very early stages of infancy. And it is the presence of a desire that is absent, right? That there's a certain enigmatic nature to your primary caregiver. Like, what do they want? Why are they doing what they're doing? Why do they engage in these rituals that they engage in, right? So the child is surrounded by enigmatic signifiers and enigmatic signs, things that are hard to or impossible to interpret. And fundamentally, at the very kernel of that is the other's desire. And something we have talked about before is how I my desire is secondary. I've never said it quite like this before, maybe, but my desire starts off by trying to figure out, where am I in the desire of the other? Right? How do I fit into the other's desire? What does the other desire of me? What other things does my mother or father desire that are different from me? How can I be desirable to the other? And so, from a very early stage, my understanding of what I desire is is interconnected with the question of the other's desire, the question mark that is, what does the other want of me? As I try to answer that in fantasy, fantasy is the type of attempt to answer that question. As I attempt to answer that question, that informs my desire. So what's beautiful about this, and is that I am no longer in my own private desire. When you're an infant at the mother's breast, you're just caught up in your own private enjoyment, and you feed at the breast and then you fall asleep. But in this very kind of early stage, your enjoyment now is tied into the other. I don't just privately enjoy. My enjoyment is interconnected and interwoven with my siblings' desire, with my parents' desire, with my friends' desire. And this is great because this is the beginning of civilization. If we were only caught up in our own private desire, and you do see in these inspirational Instagram things about like be true to your own desire, or kind of almost like stay true to yourself, and all fine, but there is a sense in which there is no true self that's not interconnected with the other. We are, and Spinoza, the philosopher, who is the great, if there is ever a great monist, it's Spinoza, where, for Spinoza, everything is interconnected, right? And not in some sort of woo-woo way. Like, pure logic is just like, you start to look at anything. If I look at this pen, and then I realize this pen is made of certain materials, and these materials were dug up by certain people, and there was transport involved, and then like the materials that make up this pen have been in the earth, for millions of years, and basically from this pen, all of these threads, all of these lines to other things start to appear. And in a similar way, my desire is so caught up, even from the very, very beginning, it's caught up in the desire of the very first person I meet, which is the first other, often the mother. There's that famous saying, was that mother is the name of God on every child's lips. And if I was to put like a psychoanalytic kind of colouring to that, I would say Das Ding is the name of God on every child's lips. The unknown dimension of the mother is the name of God on every child's lips. That the child isn't caught up simply in what they do not know, but they're also up in an unknowing that is connected to the other's desire. This black hole, this dark matter, this unknown X or dimension of the other. That no amount of exploration seems to fully explicate, because the other's desire is connected to how they see other people desiring. The reason why you can never get back to a center of the other's desire is there's no center to their desire either. It's moving and fluid and connected to your desire and others. If Das Ding is the name of God on every child's lips, something else that needs to be said is that this is both very appealing and also very terrifying. This unknown dimension is what animates horror movies, right? So a lot of horror movies have they're maternal in nature. The monster is a type of maternal Das Ding, right? This savage, all-encompassing, like the alien that can completely envelop and destroy you, just like the other's desire. That enigmatic, not knowing what the other wants of you, but it can feel like it's going to consume you entirely. It's quite terrifying, but also deeply appealing. Deeply, we desire to be enveloped by the mother other, right? So there's this ambivalence to this very early experience, and both extremes have problems, right? So there's this ambivalence and trying to work out being an individual apart from the other's desire, but also desiring because of the other's desire and being intrigued by it. So what we do as humans, as infants, is we have to create a type of wall that separates and connects us to this unknown that we're experiencing, this first unknown. And Simone Weil has a beautiful, really beautiful image for this. She says, imagine two prisoners who are in neighboring cells, divided by a wall. And the prisoners tap on the wall in Morse code to communicate to each other. The wall separates them and also connects them. And Weil here is talking about communication language, how language weirdly connects us to the other, but also separates us from the other. Right? And a way to understand what Simone Weil is meaning by this very profound, very deep and profound image, one that is worth sitting with, just imagining and thinking through this profound image of, if we imagine the prisoner on the other side of the wall is the desire of the other, the unknown Das Ding of the other, and the wall, the tapping is the communication with that, right? The wall is language. Language allows us distance from it, but also kind of echoes it. We connect with that while remaining simultaneously separate from it. And in psychoanalytic terms, it's called the name of the father, which is where we start to name the desire of the mother, the desire of the other. And we kind of start to put language to this unknown thing. And that language gives us a certain protection, a certain distance, a certain way to connect, but also not be enveloped by this unknown dimension of the other. Now, this is also a way of understanding whenever Jung said religion is a protection against God. I think it's a very profound saying as well. Is not to read this as negatively. I think when people hear that, the first thing they think is negative. Okay, religion is bad, so I want to be spiritual, not religious. Why? Because religion is a protection against God, or against the absolute, or against transcendence. And so spirituality is this kind of like getting rid of the wall that gets in the way, right? So spiritual, not religious. Religion is a wall that kind of gets in the way. At first, it was alive and dynamic and spiritual, and then it ossifies and it reifies and it becomes a defense. We need to get rid of the defense and then enter fully into the oceanic oneness with the absolute, right? So that's kind of the language you'll often hear around that spiritual, not religious thing. But the idea that religion is a protection against God is a very profound, well, it's a very profoundly religious idea, that is that we cannot stand to be in the presence of sheer unknowing without a veil, without a semi-permeable membrane, without Simone Weil's wall, not so thick that you can't hear the tapping, but not so thin that it smashes, right? So religion at its best is a wall that separates while helping us hear the unknown and the distinct. Now, I want to just mention 3 ways. So you could say religion then is the technology that we develop to have a right relationship with this unknown dimension of reality itself.